Hello, my fellow book lovers. My name is Megan, and this is Brew On It. I thought we would start off our virtual book club with a fireside chat with my husband. And we are going to discuss the book Terminal List by Jack Carr. It was also a movie adaptation on Prime, I believe. We're going to grab some firewood here, and we're going to go start a fire.
Jack Carr is a former Navy SEAL, pretty fascinating guy, right up my alley as far as like gear, guns, knives. He's a guy's guy. He's been on Rogan's podcast a number of times, told the story, but he's always been, I don't think Jack would be offended if I said like a writing nerd. He just loves writing, and he happens to be a trained assassin, so that helps. There's not many of those. He's like a modern day 007, which is pretty cool. But now he just focuses on writing, and at the time that I found out about him, he was writing this book called The Terminal List. And
now it's what, 7
now,
books?
there's like seven books in this series so far. But at the time, he wasn't sure if he was going to continue on with the James Reese character in this book. He was like, I kind of feel like, it should have a beginning and an end, but the Terminal List was so good that he was like, all right, I'm going to make another one, and then he started making more. The Terminal List then gets licensed to go to streaming, a small mini-series on Prime, Amazon Prime, and Chris Pratt is the guy who plays James Reese, which is crazy because Pratt is awesome. If you don't know who Pratt is, he was in The Office and doing a comedy thing, and then he took some more cool roles, like he played Star-Lord in Guardians of the Galaxy, and everybody knows Pratt. So then he becomes James Reese, which is a completely different side of him that we've ever seen. The dude is like a killer, and from what I can gather online, a lot of guys that critiqued him said, man, he's really operating like a tier 1 operator, tip of the spear type of guy. So that's really cool because you could tell he really took the role serious, and they're supposed to do more stuff down the road. So
I would say the Terminal List is right in line with Robert Ludlum's Born Identity series.
Okay,
Tom Clancy is another writer that he's very similar to. A lot of political espionage thriller type genre. Which,
coming into the 2024 election that has ended, is kind of like right up our alley. There's all kinds of chaos going on. So that was great. So how do we do this? Do we just rate the book first right out the gate?
And then we'll give your reasons why, yes.
Okay, so
what's your rating?
I would say Terminal List is a 5 for me.
Really?
Yes, I do. A 5. I don't read a lot of books, okay? I read right through Lone Survivor, which you probably need to read next. And I read right through that, and I was completely captivated and in. Same thing with American Sniper, Chris Kyle's story. This is a made-up book, so that's what, fiction?
Yes.
This is a fiction novel, but it kept my attention the whole time, and I would recommend it as a 5. How about you?
I would give it a 4.
Okay. Because this isn't technically your genre, you probably wouldn't be reading a lot of this stuff as it wasn't for me. So,
and I think that's why it would knock it down to a 4, not because of any of the writing per se, just because it's not my genre. I have read Robert Ludlum. I have read Tom Clancy. I was expecting with this book to be bored. Just because a lot of Tom Clancy's books are very political, and like I told you, my eyes start glazing over, and I'm just like, not there for it. But in this book, he really did a good job of humanizing his main characters, including, and for a female reading, his anticipation of going home to see his wife and daughter, and I was just like, it killed me.
It brought the emotion out.
Oh yeah.
Which is great, and
so I was very invested.
So I will also say too is that I love movies. I'm a child of the 80s, grew up watching movies. And for better or for worse, my parents really never, um, they never really guarded me from many movies, really. Uh, my dad was an action hero guy, and I, to this day, truly believe that I grew up in the greatest movie
Era.
making era of all time,
Yeah.
especially for action movies. Just so many great action stars, and great action movies, late 70s in through the 80s, and even some of the 90s were still really good before Steven Seagal got really fat. The book uh, kept me engaged. So with my characters, I want them to be good or bad. I want you to either be like, I want you to die, you,
Right.
or I want you to be like, yes, the good guy won. And I got that from this book. It really made me feel passionately about Reese, the stuff that he goes through, even his friends. And that's one thing that I think that Jack Carr really did well, because he is from the top tier military group of guys.
The camaraderie.
I
and
could
family.
feel like he was really tapping into something there when he was writing the book. So even though it's a made up story, I felt like, and it helped me connect with Jack when I was listening to him on Rogan, because he's been on a few times. It really made me feel like he was giving a glimpse into like a vulnerable place in his life. You could tell like he's lost friends. You could just tell that Jack was like really trying to nail home some stuff. Just the idea that you would touch on the loss of a buddy.
He had one interaction with somebody that he'd saved in the past, and their camaraderie of how she was kind of adopted into their family.
Yeah.
That was just like, ugh. Like,
Yeah.
the fact that you can pull on people and make a family is pretty cool.
Yeah, so when I was at work and Meg was writing me while she was listening to this book, and she was telling me how she felt emotionally, I felt like, okay, great. We're going to connect on this one, because that's how I felt. I didn't cry, but I definitely felt moved.
Oh, I cried, and then I was filled with rage.
Yeah.
With such rage, and I was like, my neighbors are going to think I'm crazy because I'm walking around the block, and the first block I am like just leaking tears, and then the second block I had gotten to the point where his family, what they did to his family, I was just like, I understand why this guy goes on basically a killing rampage, because they all deserve to die. And I was right there with him.
Well, not only does he go on a fabulous killing rampage, and it starts right out the gate when he hits that guy in the car with the rifle from afar. The guy's just driving in his sports car, has no idea. That's fantastic. But I want to talk to you about a few scenes. So, first of all, he goes on a killing rampage because he thinks he's dying, and he would do it anyway, right? But he thinks he's dying. So he's like, well, what do I have to worry about? I'm going to die anyway. I'm going to be with my family, but these bastards are not going to live and get away scot-free. So this is his thought process behind it.
I loved the picture of the family that his daughter drew.
Yes.
And that his hit list was on the back side of that.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool touch.
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool touch for sure. So the idea of him going on this rampage, you're like, okay, yeah, he's dying. It makes sense. The most famous scene, and I didn't think they were going to do it, and I thought they did it great in the series on Prime, was when he kills the guy slowly with the hatchet. Do you remember this scene? Okay, I don't know how you can't remember, because there's a name for it, and Jack talks about it on the Rogan podcast. He gets the guy, the main guy that he thinks is the main guy, and he attaches him to a post, and you're like, well, he's going to kill him, and he's like, no. And he makes him walk around the post with his intestines hanging out.
Oh,
and he's basically wrapping himself to a tree with his intestines hanging out. And then there's crabs that come. I think it's crabs.
I do remember that scene
And they
from the
slowly
show.
eat him.
I don't remember that in the book.
Oh,
though.
it's in the book. It's even better in the book. This is crazy that he killed this guy this way, because the guy was able to survive and had to die a slow death, which is the best type of death for the worst type of people. Slow and torturous. So you've got that, and then you get to the end and you realize he's not dying, right? And so that
And
leads
there's
us
a book too.
that leads us into what's the second book? It's The Brother's Hand or something.
True Believer.
True Believer. Okay, so that'll be the next one that we do.
Yeah.
But so it now has engulfed us into a series, and
it was all what? Political scandal. And they were trying to hush them all.
overall, book one of the series was great. Thanks for watching.
Hope your next book is the best book. Now, on to book 2. We are going to... There's something behind me in the bushes. Okay, it's squirrels.